Hey, what's going on, guys? My name's Cody. I'm a private boater, and today I'm going to talk about how much air you put into your raft. When it comes to air management on a river, I think we all do it slightly a little bit different. This is probably the thing I worry about the most while I'm on a rafting trip. And my buddy, his biggest fear is our boat's floating away in the middle of the night. So he puts more ropes on it than I do. So we balance each other out. So when I get to camp every single day, I do a 5 second purge. So what that means is to every single air valve, I'll go pull the boat like up on, tie it off, and then let out 5 seconds of air in each one of the air valves. And then at that point, that's my starting off point. And then if it gets a little bit hotter in the day, or if I'm worried about it, I'll go around and I'll just constantly be fueling the boats. Then I can let more air out. But then every morning it's going to be cold, and the boats are going to contract, and so they're going to be soft. So every single morning you should, on a multi-day trip, you should be adding air to your boat. If you're not, in my opinion, you're letting your boat get too tight um, in the afternoon when you've landed. So with that, when I'm on land, like starting out the trip, I will inflate my boat with the DeWalt Inflator. And so that's going to get my boat to about 1 psi. And then ultimately, I want to run my boat around 2.5 to 3.5 psi. I don't use a gauge, but that's what air recommends that you run in these rafts to not be tight enough to be maneuverable, but not so tight that you're going to start popping seams. Then with that, when I'm on the water, I'll bring in their two type of K-pumps. This is the K40. What's nice about the K40 is it's a dual stage pump, so you can put more volume in, but less pressure on this setting. And then you can put it in, flip it, and then you can have the equivalent of a K100, and that's the other K-pump that I have. So I do like this 40 because I don't carry barrel pumps on the river. And so if I had to fully deflate my boat to fix a hole in it, I would want the high amount of volume to repump it up instead of having to use a K100 to get it up to an operating pressure. But if I'm just deflating that 5 second purge and then adding air in the morning, K100 is fine. But I do really like this style. If you're not by it, downsides are a little bit harder to rebuild than the K100. So with that, then what I'll do is take this K pump, and then I go and I count how many pumps I put into each baffle. So each air valve is a baffled section of the raft. And so if I put in 10 pumps into the right front, I will put 10 pumps into all the other valves, just so it's keeping that air equal. Because I don't want one area of my raft to have a lot more pressure, because it's going to put pressure on that baffle that's in between those two air chambers, and it can cause damage if that ruptures. So what I'll do is I'll usually start with 10 pumps, and then as time goes on with, I know the rafts and the multi-days, I know how much air I let out the night before, I'll get it pretty dialed to where I can usually get it in one pass around the raft um, to get it to the tightness level that I want. So outside of that, I do everything by feel, and I might have my boat a little bit softer or harder than you might have. It's personal preference. Sometimes it's the river that you're running, and the gear that you're hauling, level, like water level. So it really is dependent, but I think this is a good starting point if you're just getting into it. So I'm using the DeWalt inflator with my Kelsey valve on the end. I'm going to each one of my individual outside chambers, and this is bringing it up to 1 psi. And so if this was fully deflated, I would go in kind of a cross pattern. And once I've done all the outside, I move to the floor. So now it's at 1 psi, and I'll go around and I'll put initially 5 to 10 pumps, and I'll do the exact same amount of pumps into each air chamber. And at that point, I kind of have a good starting point. And then on the floor, I just inflate it until the air pressure relief goes off. As I push in here, you'll see it depresses by at least an inch. And so, me personally, I like my boaters boats tighter than this. So what I'll do is I'll go around and add another 5 pumps in each air chamber, and then see how that does. So I went around, put another 5 pumps in, and you'll see right here, this boat's pretty nice and tight. This is the probably what I would want the boat to feel like once it's on the water. So the last few thoughts I have on inflating boats. So if you are driving, anytime that you go up and over a pass, your boat's going to get tighter. You come down from a pass, your boat's going to get softer. If it gets hotter, your boat's obviously going to get tighter while you're driving. And so while you're driving with an inflated boat, I check very frequently to make sure that my boat's at the right uh, inflation level. But with that said, when I'm on the river, if I'm on a very slow, gradual area and the boat's not getting splashed with water, it's not going to shrink as much as if you're in constant whitewater and that cold water is coming up and over the top of your tubes. So these are things to keep in mind. It's super easy to let air out. It's super easy to put air in, and so play with it. If you have any other questions, please reach out. But outside of that, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you guys out on the water.